Imagine it's 1925. You're walking through town, a little sluggish. You didn't get much sleep last night due to a storm nearby. You keep walking and see a crowd of people surrounding something. You walk up, and they all want to grab the latest newspaper. You don't think much of it. You join the crowd and grab your copy. What you read changes everything. 1,000 dead, 3,000 hurt. That storm last night killed 1,000 people.
Some of the pictures that we have, it's just a field of boards.
It just looked like a gray, big, heavy cloud.
If the folks wouldn't have left their homes to go downtown to be present to win in the drawings and things that were going on that day, we would have had hundreds more killed.
During the 1920s, Missouri is going through major changes. The University of Missouri is experiencing major student increases, even with the student-led magazine releasing. More than 100 clubs on campus begin forming, and so much more is happening on campus. Outside of the university, Marie Byram becomes the first woman to vote in Missouri history, and Waltall Moore becomes the first black person to serve in the Missouri General Assembly. Missouri had its first radio station release, WEW in St. Louis, which began broadcasting weather updates twice a day. During the 20s, Missouri is booming. But what about a state over? Illinois is a bit of a different story with what was happening in the 20s. They also experienced a large increase in their university, but there was also a change in immigration laws. Anti-prohibition rallies were held in Chicago, and many people felt attacked in the area. In better news, the first radio station began broadcasting from Tuscaloosa. Also, 2 athletes from Illinois, John Weissmuller, an Olympic swimmer, and Red Grange University and Bears halfback, achieved attention as sports stars. Finally, let's look at one more state that is involved in this story. In Indiana, things were reaching a sense where everything felt new. The roaring 20s were shining here with new cars, new toilets, telephones, and so much more. Indiana was also one of the first states in the nation to experience a youth rebellion, but one of the biggest impacts in Indiana during the 1920s was the Ku Klux Klan. In Indiana, the Ku Klux Klan there had around 250,000 members, at the peak with 2,000 joining weekly. Now, that's an entirely other story, but it's important to know the current status of Indiana, Illinois, and Missouri before the events of March 18th, 1925. The storm began March 17th in Montana as it crossed the nation. On the morning of March 18th, when everyone woke up, it was raining, and it never stopped. The sky was dark and gloomy. People say the air felt heavy. There was no wind. The rain slowly began to increase around 12 o'clock p.m. It was pouring. 45 to 60 minutes later, the tornado would hit the ground in Shannon County, Missouri. The tornado immediately became an issue. It started destroying farms in Missouri, starting with Scott Farm. Farmer Sam Flowers was the first to be killed by this monster. The tornado moved away from the farm and made its way northeast as it headed towards the mining town of Annapolis. In this town, the school was damaged with shattered windows. Downtown was severely damaged along with the railroad tracks as freight cars were knocked over. Around 100 people were injured here, with 4 people killed. It leaves this town to head straight towards another, Leona. It destroyed many homes, and even took the mining plant with it. 50 people were injured, as 3 were killed. The tornado left Leona and started running through some woodlands, causing many farmhouses to be damaged or destroyed. As the tornado carried on, it found its way to find Conrad School, where the tornado hit straight on, injuring 18 children, with 1 dying due to injuries later on. The tornado roared forwards as it found yet another school that was hit head-on. The Garner School was swept away. 1 person was killed, while 29 were injured. The tornado found its way through Perry County, and with many more small towns being hit, houses, hotels, and farms. The tornado finally left Missouri after destroying farm equipment, throwing animals, and infants. In total, around 12 people were killed and 200 people were injured in Missouri. But this is just the beginning. The tornado crossed the Mississippi River and starts its devastation in Illinois through some rural areas, damaging some land. At 2:30 p.m., the town of Gorham takes a head-on hit. 60 to 80 houses were destroyed, along with the church and stores. The remaining houses were damaged. The railroad tracks were ripped from the ground. Half of the town's population was impacted severely, with 30 being killed and 170 injured, some of whom died later on due to injuries. The tornado continued northeast as it struck the city of Murfreesboro. Rows of houses were leveled. Offices, railroads, anything you could think of was damaged or destroyed. 35 people died. The tornado struck a school nearby and took 17 students with it, until moving to another school, taking 12 more students. In the city of Murfreesboro, around 200 people were killed, with around 620 people injured. This city was destroyed and changed forever, as it's the highest death toll for a city due to a tornado. Once it left the city, it continued to destroy rural areas and farm equipment. The town of DeSoto was obliterated. Many more lives were taken here. The tornado kept moving as it destroyed more rural areas, farmhouses, small villages, and anything in its path. The tornado made its way to the small mining town of West Frankfort, as it resembled Murfreesboro with the damage. Many of the mining operations were destroyed, along with the newly created New Orient Mine No. 2, as it was supposed to be the world's largest coal mine. Once it left West Frankfort, it continued to take small mining villages. Towards the end of its time in Illinois, it completely removed the town of Parrish, killing 28 and injuring 60. Due to the major damage, the town wasn't rebuilt, and many people moved on. The tornado ended its time in Illinois in Hamilton and White County, as it took more rural land, houses, and schools. With this, the tornado is reaching its last leg as it enters Indiana. It destroyed the town of Griffin. 41 people were killed, and 202 were injured. The tornado finally ended after taking more rural land, destroying the town of Princeton. The tornado officially dissipated at 4:30 p.m. near Oatsville. The tri-state tornado is known as one of the most deadliest tornadoes of all time. It lasted 3.5 hours with a Fujita scale of F5. Many of the areas hit weren't prepared for the massive number of injuries. Many of the injured were put on the trains that did function to travel to a bigger hospital. Other places just didn't have the means to care for everyone. Throughout each area, there were countless people suffering. Throughout the night, the ambulance fought their way down the street to save as many lives as they could. The roads were covered with poles and wires and fires. The tornado costed, in today's money, around $2.9 billion, most coming from Murfreesboro. In the end, a little over 600 people were killed by the tornado, 12 in Missouri, 95 in Indiana, and 588 in Illinois. 57 schools were hit, which some resulted in student deaths. When the news was released, thousands of people sent donations to help the people affected. The tornado also prompted outrage aimed at the Weather Bureau for its failure to warn citizens. From here on, everything changed.
Griffin was absolutely demolished. I mean, there was nothing left. Some of the pictures that we have, it's just a field of boards.
Preserving the old photographs and artifacts from that day is the job of Alan Burr, local historian and genealogist.
So these are just really a collection of some of the most striking images from the tornado, but I also have 2 obituary lists from our town. Some of these people were really very, very young. I mean, you have Nellie Cooper, who lost her life at the Heinz plant. Edna Wilkinson was 10, and Lloyd Wilkinson was 7.
The tornado destroyed 2 major employers on the south end of the city, Southern Railway shops and the Heinz factory. Around town, people often refer to Baldwin Heights as ground zero of the tornado. Baldwin Heights School was hit hard, a building left only as a shell of itself.
There was a school right where we're standing, and it was pretty well destroyed by the tornado. And fortunately, the school was out. If this tornado would have hit an hour earlier, there would have been a lot of casualties.
Robert Gibson Jr. is now passing on the stories of his in-laws who survived the storm as children.
Fortunately, the shop's employees were on their way home. One of my wife's grandfathers worked there, and he saw the storm coming. He hid behind a building, but still got hit by my father-in-law called it a brickbat, and it broke his leg. And he was in the hospital for a number of weeks. Said he was the next to the last person released from the hospital.
Gibson says his wife's parents' home was destroyed on that day, and it was a horrific memory they could never really get past.
If they hadn't survived, you know, my life would have been different.
The path of the tornado tore through the south side of Princeton, but luckily on that day, a majority of the people weren't there. They were here in the Princeton Square. On that fateful Wednesday in 1925, there was a special kind of drawing and sale happening in the square. Well, that sale gave hundreds of people a chance at survival without them even realizing it.
If the folks wouldn't have left their homes to go downtown to be present to win in the drawings and things that were going on that day, we've had hundreds more killed.
Whenever they walked in to the stores, they had no idea what was going on in the south end of town until people started rolling in, bruised, bloodied, some people even dying. They had no idea.
Martial law was declared in Princeton, and the National Guard came in to protect the disaster-stricken areas. The day after the tornado, stories shared by survivors say that Princeton sounded like a construction site. 1 month later, Baldwin Heights School reopened. The Heinz factory and Southern shops restarted operations. New homes were sprouting up in neighborhoods.
And the fact that they were able to rebound and pull together, there's the word unity and the word community, right? It was just like, oh, we went through a bad thing, but let's roll up our sleeves and let's make the best of this.
A century later now, people continue to remember that tragic day and the lives lost. The horrific stories from survivors will continue to be passed down for generations to come. And the towns, once destroyed, will continue to push on.
I think that this anniversary stands as just a marker that people are resilient. People can make it through, and they can still go on to lead prosperous and normal lives, even in the face of tragedy.
Murfreesboro, Illinois, suffered the greatest losses in the tri-state tornado. $10 million in damage, 234 dead. Frances Bauer was taking her baby's diapers off the clothesline.
Oh, we were I'd say about 400 or 500 feet from where the wind was blowing. I'll never forget that. And it wiped my mother's house off the map. Big, low, rolling wind. Just looked like it was, sometimes it was going like this and sometimes it was going like this. I don't know how them clouds would mix, but it just looked like a great, big, heavy cloud.
Bill Molenbrock was struggling through debris with his family. They came upon a small boy sitting in this tree.
But he couldn't have gotten up there by himself, no question. He must have been blown up there, that tall. And he wasn't hurt. No, he couldn't have possibly climbed the tree, even though it's much smaller than it is today. But somehow he got up there. I don't know how.
Dr. Molenbrock was in high school when the tornado hit. He was in the room to his right.
We couldn't see. Couldn't get out of the room, of course. They pressed in there, and kids were yelling because their ears were bothering. And it lasted maybe a minute and a half total.
Students were buried alive in the study hall area. It was up to their friends to save them from suffocation.
It was the plaster, and no place to breathe. The air couldn't get to them, and so mouth full and nose was full, and they couldn't get their arms up to dig it out themselves. And when I got to them, we got to them, why, one of the girls gave me her petticoat, and there was some water around there, and I did that and started to work on them. We had no indication that it would be a tornado of that dimension. I saw the great cloud over there, and I thought, well, I've seen that before. But that wasn't the real offender. It was the one behind us that we finally heard the roar of it. So none of us saw that.
Well, I didn't know that it was a tornado. I thought it was just a bad storm. My mother said that if she hadn't looked out the window, saw it coming, she'd have been gone with it.
Everything changed after that fateful day when dealing with severe weather. There began to be advancements in meteorological technology, and warning systems began being implemented. Storm spotter networks, essentially everything we have today is a result of this event. This tornado is the reason people began to be aware of how dangerous and horrifying tornadoes could be. Over 100 years later, this tornado left a lasting legacy. Murfreesboro is a strong example of a community coming together to fix their home. 100 years later, they still remember everyone who was lost. Although this was a horrendous event, communities like Murfreesboro prove why you can always grow stronger.
5 days later, a community was coming together to rebuild, restore, and make a way again. We know that this tornado was a bookmark in Murfreesboro's history and not the final chapter.